Hello. Not the October chat.
No.
That'd be very early.
No, it's mid-September chat. It's the late September chat.
Late September chat.
Late September chat.
We're doing a little vast retrospective.
Yeah.
And I have my special guest Nick.
Yep.
This doll from Casty, and Casty himself is in the studio today. So we brought
the whole gang is back together for doll, Casty,
Nick.
us. We had to bring them all back together to talk about
this Katamari cup, which I didn't own at the time. Yeah, and so we thought it's getting near Halloween, and we do a little retrospective about the Vast series.
Yeah,
Talk about the Vast series.
For sure.
And just kind of, like...
Its history with the company.
Remind people it's here. Yeah.
Vast was, before I worked here, Crystal Caverns is what drew me into the company. I mean, I was at the Gen Con where it launched, and it was one of the titles to be excited about, and I was excitedly in line waiting to buy a copy. Like that.
You got a Crystal Caverns?
I got Crystal Caverns, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I didn't know that.
Yes, I did get one that day. Yep. Went home and taught it to my friends at an Airbnb.
That's
the best way to do it.
Crazy you taught that game that quickly.
It didn't go great. But anyway, you should talk about Vast though, and its origins.
And its origins.
Yeah.
So this, by the way, this action figure. Let's call him. He's a life-size action figure.
Yeah.
Kyle Farron and Meredith Farron put together right before the 2017 PAX U or something like that.
It would be like 19 or something.
2019,
I was hired in 18.
Yeah. And he did used to have glowing eyes, but they got lost during shipping.
Yeah.
So now we just had those green token, those goblin tokens.
He was just folded up in a box.
In his face. So so let's talk about the origins of Vast. So so there's two games in the series. There's Crystal Caverns, which is about a knight hunting a dragon in a cave. And being chased by goblins, with the knights being chased by goblins. And it was designed by David Somerville, and I met David because he had been doing a work in progress thread about Vast, which was called Trove at the time. Mm-hmm. And he'd been doing a work in progress thread on BGG, and I ran into it because I was arguing with someone about how to make tiles in a dungeon in a game I was working on, which I still kind of want to go back to sometime. And so I did that. I ran into it, and it was normally a work in progress thread on BGG is if it's a really popular topic at the time, you'd see a few pages of discussion, and then it would kind of peter out, and it was bananas.
Sure.
It was easily 10 pages when I discovered it, and. So it was just going and going and going, and I was like, well, there's something special here. So I took a look at the game, and David's original prototype was amazing, and it was well done. I've always said that someday graphic designers will come from my job, and he was he did a lot of graphic design, and so his prototype felt very polished and well done, and the way that someone would make a screenshot of a video game that doesn't exist.
Yeah. Those, fan mock-ups and stuff. It's crazy. You actually did this all the way through. Yeah,
and it was playable.
Yeah,
so let's throw on top of that.
Yeah.
So we had this wonderful black and white version that was more like. It was more like if someone had just made a really interesting chess variant and then made asymmetric powers, but even there was even pieces that moved diagonally and pieces that moved horizontally. And then he made the color version, and so he worked on those too, and that was much more like what Vast is today. Mm-hmm. And so we talked about it, and he said that he had started the game out as a story he's telling to one of his children, and then he thought to himself, and it's Katamari Damacy. The Katamari guy always said that your biggest changes are going to come from outside the industry.
Sure.
The biggest changes in the game are going to come from someone who doesn't know how. I'm not going to sit down. I'm going to sit down and design a Euro.
Yep, exactly.
But someone else is going to come in and be like, what if we took?
I've never made a board game.
And so instead of everyone being the questing hero, what if the questing hero is one of the players? And then we said, let's make all the other parts of the story. And as he was telling the story, he was like, well, there's goblins chasing the knight. So then, boop. Mm-hmm. And in the original cut of the game, the dragon was actually the goblins were obliged to put monsters out as they went down this tech tree.
Oh, cool.
And and then at some point the dragon would come out. That was like the last.
That
was
like
the
final.
Yeah, that was the final
thing,
tech.
sure.
And so then it was like a liability because you'd be like putting monsters out that you didn't want to get. That could hurt the knight, but also like were a liability and would move you further up the tech tree until you got to the dragon and the player could win. And then he was like, "No, I got to split that out into another role." And they did that. And then at some point he was like, "What if there was a person telling the story that had a lot of control over it?" And then eventually he segged into like, well, what if that was an actual thing
cave.
and it was a cave in the game?
Yes, okay, sure.
That controls how things die. And David, if you're watching and I'm getting any part of the story wrong, hit me up afterwards. And so like he was pitching that, and so then I sent him an email. Can you maybe pop that up for a second, Alita? Did you have that capability?
We've got it here.
Okay, so I sent him a note on BGG, and I'm not revealing any state secrets here. This has been on Twitter.
Still on BGG, probably.
Yeah, no, actually, well, this is a direct
Sure,
message.
sure.
Yeah, and so I sent him an email saying, "Hey, look, I have published a game with another publisher, and I've published a game by myself, and I'm kind of looking around for my next project. Do you wanna work on a project together, or do you want to work on this project together? Because I think." If all I contribute to the game industry at this point in my life is that this game gets published, then fantastic. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And you can take it down now. Thank you. And so I contacted him, and he, in that letter or his response to that email, he said, "I'm working," and I didn't want to post the other ones because I don't want to incriminate anyone. He said, "I'm working with other publishers right now, and I'm trying to get someone that's been further along to work on it."
Sure.
And he was like, I respect that.
Yeah, of course.
So I helped him with his pitch, and I helped him make a sell sheet, and I helped him work with people. And at some point he came back and he said, "Hey, there's 3 people like you that said, I don't know if I have the means to do it, but I'm going to do it."
Yeah.
And he said, he came back to me and he said, "You know what, of all the people that I've talked to and worked with, you're the one that kept coming back and helping me and working with me, and so that I want, this is what I want to do."
Yeah, you
I did the homework.
The game.
Yeah.
It was just very sincere. I mean, you can tell you were excited about the game existing. More than anything, which I think is really commendable.
Yeah, and so that was November of 2014. I was struggling at my job at the time, and I woke up in the middle of the night to go get a drink of water or something like that, and I was like, "Oh, I have an email." And I looked down, and it was funny because I normally go to bed later than it was. And so I was like, I just went to bed early, and then I woke up and I was like, "Oh, there's an email from David." And I opened it up, and I was standing over a table, and I literally had to steady myself. Like my heart just rushed so hard at that moment, and I was like, "Okay, this is it.
We're going to do it.
This is how we're going to do this."
Yeah.
And I started working on it. So he sent me the prototype, and I played it 5 times in 48 hours, and which had a full-time job at the time, so it was impressive.
Couldn't imagine when that was happening.
Yeah. And then the rest is history. At a year later, I was contracting for Quantum Retail Technology, and things were getting a little hairy there. And I went to my boss and I said, "Hey, I need to take a couple days off. I'm going to go do this Kickstarter." And I kicked it off, and then we took off. And so Vast Crystal Caverns came out a year later.
Yep.
That show, we brought 500 copies at Gen Con. We had 500 copies in the warehouse for sale.
Yeah, and I'll speak on the consumer side here, because Patrick he was the one making it. Vast was, at least from my perspective, as just a consumer in the hobby at that point, it was a big deal. It was like in terms of crowdfunding stuff, it came out, and the discussion around it about how unique the mechanisms was. Yeah. It was the first. I think it was the first game for a lot of people that truly introduced how heavy the asymmetric thing could be to a large audience. I know what the original Dune game existed years ago and whatnot, and but those are so neat, and
or Cosmic,
right? But Vast had, again, because it was comfortable being just playing in the most generic of trope of a cave and a dragon and whatnot, but then taking it with that with that little ripple, I think is what caught so much fire and interest. It was I had to wait in line at Gen Con to get a copy. You guys were swamped.
During the Kickstarter, I remember people telling me other designers would be like, I was at work and someone came up and told me about this.
Yeah, type thing. No, it was that type of it was just in conversation, even if you weren't going to buy it or playing it, it was just like something to be aware of that was happening, because it was just like, there isn't, have you heard about this game where you can play as the dragon?
As the cave.
Yeah, like straight up. It was just that simple, where it was like, no, like what? And yeah, I mean, at Gen Con, I don't know, obviously, from the inside, but it seemed like it was obviously a huge success. For
we sold 1,000 copies. Yeah. So we sold 1,000 copies for like $60 each. So it was, we came home with 60,000, which is a good, like that's our third biggest show.
Yeah.
maybe that's not true.
But
but Root, I mean, the Root selling out and the Ark selling out was better. But for the presence at the time, I was pretty happy with it. Yeah. So thank you. And then Tom Vassell, I had the good luck of getting to teach Tom Vassell how to play the game. And then Saturday morning, they asked him at the top of the show, the Dice Tower show, like what's cool about Gen Con this year, and he said,
and that's a show that's at Gen Con, just for people who might.
They were filming it at Gen Con.
They're talking to people who are at the thing and being like, what here is exciting. So immediately after talking about it, people left that thing and went straight to the hall to buy it, to whatever Tom was talking about.
And David was in the audience, and he literally texted me batting the hatches, and I was like, "What's up?" And he's like, "You're about to sell out."
It's coming.
And sure enough, there was a mob around me after that, and we sold out. So I think some people even left the show early.
Oh, sure.
To get the to like 50 after the
hour.
Just
like hear a couple things. Let's just go buy that before it sells out. That's how those things are at Gen Con.
So it was fun. And so the next year, I kind of bounced between working full-time at Leader and working contracts. And so one of my bus rides home from that job, one of those jobs, I was like, I know I still have a lot to do with, we were still waiting to ship Crystal Caverns. I was like, I know I still have a lot to do, but I started designing. I had two approaches to design that I was going to design, kind of the expansion that replaced everything in the Crystal Caverns 1-for-1, which became the Frozen Fear. And then I was like, and then I'm going to try building a standalone set the way that Dominion and Dominion Intrigue complemented each other at the time. And I finished, honestly, I think I just finished Mysterious Manor first. I think that was just a stroke of luck.
I mean, sometimes you're working on two things. One's going better or faster, and
Frozen Fear is done now, but we've never built a prototype for it. And so I built Vast Mysterious Manor, and after Root came out, we were having a lot of success with Root. We brought...
This is now in, I'll give people the timeline, this is now in 2018, roughly. We're 2018 was when I was hired, and Root hadn't been released yet either.
Right. Because we're about to head into that summer.
We were about to see the success of Root. And while that was finishing... we were finishing TMM, essentially. While that was I don't even remember exactly how it would time out, but then I was brought on to finish TMM.
I keep moving around here because the monitor is...
The
monitor is spanning camera. I just wonder if there's any questions. It looks like Ann and Brooke are just talking.
It's just Ann and Brooke chatting about Vast.
And so we played... so I brought... I've been playing Mysterious Manor at home. And I brought it into the office, and then we started playtesting Mysterious Manor, and I thought, it was like, cool, we got this, and so we started building Mysterious Manor, and it went through. It was interesting because I tried to make it I was so desperate to make it compatible with Crystal Caverns,
right?
And then you all had to intervene and be like,
these dang people.
Why don't you make it simpler for starters, more teachable?
Yeah, probably. I would call it more teachable because I mean, in that good way, I do think I had, in terms of that outsider lens thing, I did have the benefit of being a person who, just as a consumer, bought Crystal Caverns.
Right.
Tried to play it and hang it out, and have a good time. And I was like, there's some oddities here that make it trickier to just get to the meat of it than I expected.
Right.
So I think that lens was I think it was helpful, at least for coming into it, to realize trying to find what was making TMM Vast so interesting, and what was kind of getting in the way of that.
Right.
I certainly think the goal of Mysterious Manor, and I mean Mysterious Manor was also, I would just call it that was where I cut my teeth on learning how to do anything in this. I mean, it was my first real graphic design project out of college. Was that I worked at a call center. I had a degree in graphic design. I did that stuff. Yeah. Shut up. Yes. Yeah. So I had a degree in graphic design and stuff, but I hadn't done a professional graphic design gig until TMM. So, I still sometimes think about it. I'm like, it's crazy, and I really appreciate how much trust you guys had.
Showed up.
No, yeah, I mean, like, seriously, though, like, I went from, in a very serious way, I went from having nobody have seen my work other than school to, like, in people's homes, graphic design, that's cool.
Literally shipped to people's homes.
Literally shipped to people's homes in their hands looking at it, and I was like, this is crazy. This is crazy for me. Yeah, we're just talking about the history of Vast, bringing you up to speed. We are at about my hiring / TMM's work is where we're talking about 2018, 2019-ish.
And your application, I don't know if you remember this, came, so there were event cards in Mysterious Manor, like Crystal Caverns.
Yes, I do. Yeah. I have those.
And then you made an event card. You took the event card from Crystal Caverns and made it a Mysterious Manor event card, and then formatted it, and it looked. It was one of the better ones.
Looking back on it now, it was all right, but yeah.
It looked like a game card.
Yeah, exactly. And I did have that. I had the benefit of, like, and I knew that was one of the unique advantages I had, where I was a person who did graphic design who also was obsessed with games. I did have that as a fortunate benefit. I see somebody asking, Nick, having played the Skeletons, you did such a rad job. They're a jam to play as. Oh, thank you.
That was a question.
I lied. I know. I thought I was me sneaking in a compliment as in the form of a question for myself. No, the Skeletons are awesome. I'm really happy with how they came out. And yeah, no, I mean, it's like, and again, like, there were so many things that were already cooked in how Vast functioned as a game. Certainly, again, I was in there as a developer, changing things, editing things.
And then we used, there was an alternate cave that Kyle Wolfel had designed. Or it was called The Architect, and you were trying to arrange, you're kind of playing a tiling game at well, I mean, you are playing tiling games, cave, but you were trying to arrange the tiles in certain configurations to score points. And we tried that. We adapted that from Mysterious Manor, and then you and Jake at the time came in and said, "This isn't going to work." And then I tried a couple other things. I don't know where the sigil thing landed.
I mean,
I think it was both of us.
No, I mean, that iterative process is so just so there's so much that comes and goes in it. It's crazy. I love how all Leader Game staff is so humble and quick to point out their accomplishments for a team effort. That's that Midwestern energy. For sure. But also, I mean, literally everything we do here is a team effort. I don't think there's almost nothing you can point to where it's like, that was just this person. We're either brain behind the Skeletons, the Great Bones, also my favorite. Patrick and David and whatnot. I mean, the Skeletons were existed for. They were. I mean, there was a lot there. There's a lot of versions. I know some of the history.
Before Nick got to. What Nick did was he took the action. I was trying to get it down to move, take an action, and that was working. But I think you kind of boiled the actions down to what they are now.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, the great distillation.
And then I think something about the ordering reshuffling was a little bit.
I was allowing people to take the Skeletons action in any order, and then you were the one that pitched what if they went in order? Yeah. And then I struck back with, and then when they die.
Yes, and that was how, and then we kind of fixed the whole, and then it fixed that weird.
Because Slashy was too powerful if she was in the back of the line. Or when you were deciding who to move, you'd always move Slashy last.
Yeah.
Also, that cut the God,
it cut the AP down.
Sometimes I'd take a 3-minute turn because I'd be like,
and then I do this one.
And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna do it, and then it'd work out. And so the ordering was both very freeing.
I mean,
and limiting.
I mean, it's for context. We played Vast this morning, just so we were both fresh on it too. We played TMM this morning, just to get back to it. And it's cool to see all the little design tricks that are in there that would again be iterated, reused in different ways for our future projects.
I'm gonna take a minute of the stream here to open
pull it up on your phone.
To open up my to open up the stream so I can read it.
You'll pull it up. My dream is finally to get to play the Warlock, the 5th faction, the Warlock. Yeah, the Warlock was one of the trickier ones to get working, frankly.
You did a lot of the Warlock.
Yeah, that was one that, me and Cole did a lot of work on the Warlock, and the Knight and Shadow Paladin was kind of at the end of development, and me and Cole would sit there and play two-handed games and stuff, where it was like, okay, you're gonna play, because for the structure you often needed 4, so it would be like, all right, you're gonna play the manor and the knight, and then the other person can play the spiders and the skeleton or whatever. So you're just trying to get as much out of it.
Because we had to do two-headed.
You need to get 4-player games, then we didn't have as much staff for testing.
In fact, we even talked about how do we make this a team game?
Exactly.
So we worked on TMM for 6-8 months, and we're trying to like our playbook back then was still to beef up content based on stretch goals.
Yep.
So we added Shadow Paladin and the Armored
Yeah, that
Knight.
was back in the stretch goal days a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, we added some extra skeletons to the expansion stuff as we
that's
went
right, yeah.
eventually, because I think there was originally 2.
That's the best part of the
third,
expansion.
yes, I agree. It's the extra skeletons. Like honestly, it is one of those funny expansions where like one person gets some really cool stuff and it's the skeleton.
Yeah.
Why you decided not to add a 6th and 7th role in TMM? Good question. TMM, unlike Root, is a lot more like a rock, paper, scissors kind of game.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to introduce another like node into that kind of structure. It's why the 5th role was already so hard. I mean, they exist nearly on this like meta layer above the game, because trying to plug 2 specifically into somebody else's, because Vast has the difference where most of the player's victory conditions are directly related to another person's player condition. So like player 1 wins by beating player 3 and player 2 wins by beating player 4. And so like, does player 7 win by beating player 6? It's, and those are things that maybe, you could change exactly how it's structured or something, but I think given the dynamics of it, it's just like Vast isn't really meant to be at 7 players, probably.
So there's a 6th and 7th role in Crystal Caverns called the Ghoul. And,
yes, there is
the
actually.
Ghost.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And the Ghoul just gets rewarded for beating up the other players. And so like to talk to Nick's point, like I had to make a 6th role in a way that wasn't opposing one player, so I wouldn't break up the rock, paper, scissors.
Or else they have 2 people against them.
So now I have to throw a bomb that hurts all of them a little bit. And so that kind of worked for the Ghoul, but the Ghoul could also really throw the game off. And then the Ghost, who frankly is...
The Ghost is cool.
The Ghost is cool.
The Ghost is really cool.
The Ghost has 2 modes. The Ghost is either playing as the Ghost proper, and then they're just trying to get all their stuff at home.
Yeah.
And all their stuff is trivial stuff that the other roles have picked up. So you sign the extra equipment to the other players, and then it's like, oh, you're carrying the Ghost's dishes. So you have to steal the Ghost. You have to steal the dishes back and put them where they're supposed to be in the cave. And so then the Ghost has either like this psychokinesis that they can rip things away, or they can possess the other players. Well, that means the Ghost player needs to have played the game enough times that they know how to play every role, because they literally take a half turn for that role.
Yeah.
And, in retrospect, maybe we do that a little bit differently if we did it again.
It's a very gamery role.
It's a very gamery role. And then the other side of the cave is the other side of the Ghost is the Cave Ghost that replaces the cave in the game. It is my favorite role in Vast, actually, because it's this great metaphor or something. I don't know. Like it's like the Cave Ghost wants to be near the other players to control them better, but wants to be away from the other players to power up their omens.
Sure.
And so there's this great swing of them moving back and moving in and out of range with the other players, and it's a great time. We could have adapted the Ghoul, and we could have adapted the Ghost for TMM.
Yep.
But I think we were just like, we were on a runway for getting it done, and that Ghost is. You have to play at such a high level, because if you're taking a half a turn for another player in a game where everyone comes down to the last inches, you cannot, I've seen players just possess the knight over and over, and then the knight just wins because they're just running away with the game at that point.
Well, and I think to that point, it's kind of something maybe we've learned even as far as adding content and making more content goes, where it's some of that early, Crystal Caverns content, or honestly even the TMM expansion content, like the Shadow Paladin stuff, goes. I'd say lately our expansion strategy, understand, is to go a little bit broader, where those ones were certainly more about depth.
Yeah.
And in that way, it's I think the Ghost is really cool, but does require a person's not going to be able to pick up the Ghost for the first time and have as good of a time. And our general design sensibility and stuff now is so much more about that initial kind of reaction to it, and then making sure there's still stuff to chew on that 10th play and whatnot. So I can see how. But you're right. You would want to. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be a tricky one to do, because it's cool how much they get to play with the other people. That was the whole point. I mean, yeah.
I would love to. Do I think it was too much for Crystal Caverns? I mean, it's hard to say. For me, Nick knows me. Nick knows that I just like cool stuff in games. And so for me, the Ghost and the Ghoul really hit the this, wnow that we have this working, what's the really odd thing we can do? You look at like a full D&D party, when you build a D&D party, and it's got to have some that heals, some that breaks into the blocks, some that can fight. And then it's when you get to that 5th and 6th character, you're like, now, what's the weird thing? You know, now we can have a bard.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
And so that's the like, to me, that was what the appeal of the 6th and 7th character. Were they really hard to balance? Certainly.
Yeah.
And is there a chance for a player to upset the game with them to not help themselves? Definitely. So they require such a high level of play. Yeah, I don't think I would rebuild them.
Yeah.
As hard as it is to say that, because the Ghost was a lot of fun. I think if you made a vast title with the Ghost as one of the
core
4 roles,
I just think you could make it a monster. Like if you made it a core monster or something, or it was like related to the environment, like the Ghost
really
plus the house.
what possession meant. You weren't taking a turn; you're just moving their piece. I think it worked fine.
Yeah.
But I don't think. I think we're at the top of it all.
Denny Dean says, joined a little later. Was it discussed if there's any future for Vast, a streamlined 2nd edition? ? Yeah, I mean, I'll go off script and I'll just speak for myself. As a person who worked on it, I think Vast is really cool, and I would love to revisit it personally.
Yeah.
I think the game has enough bones there that are really cool. I think it's been enough time that I personally, outside of whatever structures might exist at the company, I think I personally would be excited about it. I think it's neat. I think it's a project that could, who never knows? Anything could happen here, as you guys know. It's not, never say no. I think Vast is a really cool world, and I do think it's important to show people kind of how important it was.
Yeah. It's interesting because if I, to answer the same question.
Yeah, please,
so if I had my druthers, I would do, and I guess I own the company, so I do. But,
you do. The most druthers possible.
I also have to pay people. Yeah.
Your druthers.
Yeah. So I would love to work on a 2nd edition or like an anniversary edition or something like that at some point, and I would probably just make Ted presented this idea to me, and I was like, at first, but now I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. I would probably just focus on the core 4 roles.
Yeah, I think so too.
And just out of the box be like, yep, this is the whole game.
Polish them to
a fine point, and then be like, and then if you want this other weird stuff, like sure, we'll build another product about it or something, something like that. But I wouldn't even consider that to be like, that would not be the like initial pitch or the core experience to me. It would just be to get those 4 roles really humming well, and to take everything that we learned, and I have designed Frozen Fear.
Yep.
And like, so what, the way that TMM was informed by Crystal Caverns, Frozen Fear was informed by Mysterious Manor.
Yep. There's directly.
There's further rule changes that I made to streamline it, and I would take those changes and
bring them all the way back.
Bring them all the way back.
Yeah, I mean, we've all gotten so much better at our jobs in the past 6 years or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, I can only imagine how good Vast would be if we made it now, type of thing. I think is why I found the idea exciting. I saw a question from earlier that was asking if you could swap any faction between Root and Vast. What would you like? I'll speak for myself. I think the spider queen lady, like a giant spider that splits into multiple little spiders,
would be pretty awesome.
Would be pretty awesome in Root. I know like Root insects don't really exist. I don't know. Who cares about the lore? But yeah, I think that'd be neat. Like big old spider splits into tiny spiders. I think that's a fun one. I also love the skeletons. I don't know how you do that in Root though.
Can you scroll up a little bit? Just I missed one of the comments. Can you tell us?
Could you tell us a little bit about Trick or Treat was? I see it on Patrick's BGG, but I know it's not really a Leader Games game.
Yes, it is.
There you go. It's official. It's canon. It's a Leader Games game.
It's totally Leader Games.
If you're a true fan,
you have
canon. Yeah,
you have one of 1,000 copies. So
it's like
if
you're a real Lord of the Rings fan, you read the Silmarillion. If you're a real Leader Games fan, you played Trick or Treat.
No, it I mean, it was just something I did before Vast, and it was I've been talking to. I don't know. Careful, I talk.
Sure, of course.
But like, I mean, everything that Trick or Treat, everything that Severance did. Severance didn't do well, but it taught me how to publish a game, and Trick or Treat taught me how to print a game, and Vast taught me how to sell a game, and so like. Yeah, I think a Trick or Treat is, and I actually have been noodling on like, and for no reason.
Yeah.
It's just Halloween, and I want to noodle on Trick or Treat, and I've been noodling on Trick or Treat, and how I'd rebuild it now. I build it as a roll and move game, of course, which it was in its original conceit, and then I couldn't finish it, so I made it the way it is. Yeah. So anyway, to go back to that question, I would just we talked about it, the second edition, and then I would expand with the other little things. I would love, but on the other hand, like I got an offer when the game first came out, and somebody said, "I will pay you X amount of dollars per copy we sell," and then of course I'd have to give David some because he had a royalty, and they were like, "You just keep going." Like, we'll publish it for you.
Sure.
Make Vast 3, make Vast 4.
Sure.
And send us the pitches, and I could have been doing that.
Yeah,
I could be doing that right now.
Yeah.
And I, and so some days I do think, like, there are some weird and wonderful ideas in those, and I don't even care if I publish them. Like, I just want to make them and play them as, like, a lab or an experiment or something like that. So, yeah, I would like to see the polished version of second edition, but I'd also like to see a Vast set and a Tesseract. So,
Sure, I know what you mean in that way.
Yeah.
Vast moon, vast zero gravity, the vast cube. I remember the cube.
That's the Tesseract. Yeah,
That's what you meant, of course.
Yep.
I like that we both know what that means. All right, let's see what else we got
Look
here.
it up. It's on Wikipedia.
All right, I said I'm trying to only talk about Vast this stream, but I'll break the rule briefly.
Yeah.
We both can give updates. Patrick, could you give us a brief update on Opus/Path?
Who said we can give an update?
I'm saying it.
Oh, you're saying it.
Somebody asked a question, and I'm doing it quick.
Shoot.
If you want to say nothing, you can say no. You can comment.
I hear bricks storming the room.
No comment.
No,
You've been playing them.
Yeah, I've been playing them.
I
played Block back in May with Alita, and I had streamlined it down to, like, I was like, if this is the direction, this is it. This is the direction I'd want to go if I finish this game. And then for Opus, it's going okay. I think we're getting the theme nailed down into the gameplay. I think the core loop is. Nick and I are gonna probably meet about it after this.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we have a discussion about what excites you.
What gets the game going, right?
What gets you going in the game, yeah. And then Swarm, I'll say, I came back from vacation on Monday. I've been gone for like a week and a half. I had a prototype that I updated before I left, and some of my coworkers had graciously taught Kyle while he was here, so he had a chance to look at it. But it's where it is. I think there's a little bit of odds about like what's the most entertaining parts of the game versus what's asking players to do a lot. So I have a couple big swings that I'm interested in trying on it. Even something like a possibly a co-op version. But yeah, I guess I have some big things I want to try to change out a little bit. But that's all I'll say about it. Back to Vast.
Okay, back to Vast.
All right. Why we're here. But yeah, no, TMM. It was really fun to play again this morning. I will say, it's crazy how much design work is in that box. It really is. And to be clear,
it was funny too because I thought it was gonna be a blowout.
It was super close. Right at the beginning of the game, I was I was about to complain to you. I was man, this seems impossible.
I would have gotten a third hit on you.
Yeah, you would
have turn, and I was like, shoot, and then it ended up being close anyway. So I was like, neat. The game is working.
It does show like we played that game a lot.
There's so many like very small levers you can pull on your turn, and then you're like, oh, I really actually did hit you hard.
No, there's a lot of spinning plates at times to keep in mind when you're doing it. But yeah, no, Vast has been because what did we play the other day? We played the Night Cage.
The Night Cage,
which was a fun like a double feature. It was fun to do the Night Cage and then TMM, both games where you're in a dark building running around trying to explore stuff. And even just playing that gave me like excitement about the way that those just like tile exploration games are handled. I think there's something so simple and visceral about move, explore, find new thing, decide how you're going to orient it and whatnot. That I think is, I don't know. It just really tickles me.
It's funny. My son and I have been playing a lot of Dungeon.
Oh, sure.
And Dungeon has a very static map, and like as you play it, you're like, I know where I know it's everywhere that's 5 spaces away because that's how far you can move in a turn. And so like that exploration is now gone.
Yeah.
Because it's just what do I find in each room?
Is
there? And I told Cole last week, I was like, I'd probably pay somebody to draw me a new dungeon map.
Yeah.
Like as
Just like
ridiculous as
commission
that
one?
sounds. Yeah. And like, or like, come up with a thing that generates dungeon maps or something like
sure,
that.
yeah.
Because like that, the joy of that game is just trundling through the corridors and finding the monsters. And it's, you know, like for us, we've played enough times now where it's just kind of boiling down to the same game over and over. And he plays the wizard every time now, and I play the cleric every time now. And it's like, so
your builds,
we're
you know
on
how to
different
do it,
levels of the
sure.
dungeons. We're not even interacting. And it's, and I would love to have just, you know, or go back to one of my designs and make a dungeon crawler like that. It's the scale. Don't tell me to play Descent, because it's dungeon is at a different scale. It's a different scale of a game.
Sure,
yeah,
that makes
it's
sense.
about the exploration, and it's not about the tactical combat. So.
Yeah, there's not a lot of exploration streak. I mean, that's part of the reason I liked.
Maybe I should teach him Vast.
I liked Deep Rock co-op, that one when I played it too,
Yeah.
just because of the simple like huge hex tile, where are they, what are they, like it's really simple, but you're like I don't know, I just like don't want to know how it's a discovery element.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We played a game of it recently where I think we had dug out 20 tiles.
Sure, yeah,
And
that's
so
cool.
the map had changed so much
like,
by the
like,
time we got to the end.
yeah, Deep Rock Galactic is the board game is definitely on my like list of like interesting hex navigation ones about players deciding to make unique maps. I mean with Swarm in my head.
I didn't know you were playing it.
I played it a couple times online. Yeah, I've played like 2 scenarios of it. I'd like to play. I'll bring it by.
Yeah, we'll bring it back.
Arkham LCG is a good deck builder.
Yeah. I can do that.
Oh yeah, go for it.
I don't know how to slink back to it, so I'm just gonna jump.
Whatever you got.
So yeah.
Hard transition.
Poor transition. So someone just reminded me in the studio that there's actually 3 references to our children. So it was David Somerville has a child named Violet, and so that's the knight. If you put up a picture of the knight, which probably might be a lot to find right now. Oh, there we go. So there's a little streak of violet in her hair. And we can talk about this cover too. There's a little streak of violet in her hair because that was a reference to David's daughter there. And then the fact that it's a blonde girl is a reference to my daughter. And then also the rubies, which Kyle, the dragon has rubies that it sets down in the cave, and Kyle has a daughter named Ruby. So at the time, those were the only children we had. So those were the references. Actually, Molly was around too, but we didn't make her. Apparently, not reference to Molly. Yeah, and so that was a sweet little thing he worked in without knowing. I didn't talk about so this cover too is like one of the moments like I only saw this a few days before it went live on the Kickstarter, and it was funny because the Kickstarter now we're like it's gonna be on this date, and we plan out like we gotta market X on 3 weeks from then, 2 weeks from that, 6 months, whatever. And I was literally like, get people excited. And I kept going, getting people excited. And then like the Kickstarter page was together, and I was just incrementally fixing the page. And at some point I was like, well, this is done. Or, I think Gil Hova or James Mancy said, your first day of crowdfunding is to get your audience going. And then fix the page until it can activate more people.
That makes sense.
And that's certainly not true anymore. And so he I got this cover a few days before, and I'd gotten some of the art for the Knights side quest cards a couple days before I'd gone live with the project, and that was just a sweet moment. I remember very well of being like. Was scared to death. Yeah. And then suddenly I saw the art and I was like, okay, this is gonna be this is the thing. We can do this now, and it's gonna work for us.
It's a sick cover. It's really, really good.
What's amazing to me about the cover, and I tell a story every time I look at it closely, and Nick's heard this a million times.
I'll act like I haven't.
But Kyle said to me, I'm pointing at the cover right now. He said to me, like David said, I don't like it because blah blah blah, and then Kyle retorted no, it's doing what it's supposed to do, and it's drawing your eye to the familiar, and then it's drawing your eye to the threatening presence, and then it's drawing your eye to the strange thing, and then it's drawing your eye to and then you see the cave in the background. And so literally what he's saying is your eye's gonna look at the knight, your eye's gonna look at the dragon, then you're gonna look at the goblins, and then you're gonna look at the cave, because if you look at the cave in real life, on the graphic, it's very obvious, and if you look at the actual cover, it's not it's a little bit more subtle than I think it is there.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And just how the color works in printing, and I felt chills because that was the exact experience I had when looking at the cover. Yeah, and like exactly, my eye looked at the knight.
Well, I think also in terms of like a game that's trying to communicate what it's about in the most core, simple way.
Here are these 4 things fighting.
Those are the things, and it's like, and more so, you're like, because it's, I didn't even consider this at the time, but because it's not a band of heroes, there's one hero on it. You are like, what, you know, it immediately. You're like, oh well, who am I playing as then? If there's only one, you know, it's still one of my favorites for sure.
I think there's there's a project on the Discord where folks are trying to.
I've seen that.
They try to
before,
redesign Vast to make the rules more modular.
Like Vast Simple or something. Or what's called,
it was funny because I sat down and played it one time and I was like, oh, this is what learning Vast is like.
Sure, yeah. Hey, it's good to be on the other side of it,
It was very humbling.
Yeah, no, it's good to be on the other side of it, though. Like, you never know until, I tried to see somebody else's, like, odd interpretation or something. That's funny. That's a good one.
It was a horrible for me, but it was a good effort. And where was I going with this? So they, So there's 3 cards for each roll that make the game easier and make the game harder. And one of the knight's cards uses the knight errant from Oath as the art.
Oh, sure, cute.
And it's the knight's father.
Sure.
And if you look at the color schemes, they're very. It could actually be her dad.
Cute.
It's cute. Yeah.
That's fun. I like that.
Yep.
Here we have some more.
Now there's a connection between Vast or Oath universe. I'm not trying to establish that. Yeah.
I think they're all connected, if you ask me. Vast TMM question. This is a great one because it goes kind of what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Somebody says when we were learning the game, it was a little bit tricky to refer to the rules. You know, things are kind of scattered about. Blah, blah, blah. Is there a more consolidated way? Unless there's something on BGG, like it would be worth checking. Maybe somebody's made a better rules reference thing. But exactly that's kind of stuff we're talking about because there hasn't been a second printing.
Yeah, that's what we
TMM.
do.
And so and you know. Won't be for a while probably or something. But yeah, like there's so many little things that I think could be could be improved. You know, we've learned so much since then, just all of us. Since solo modes are getting more popular, how do you feel about the solo mode in TMM? Does the current game design allow for more scenarios other than the Paladin one? I think a really savvy solo designer could probably try to come up with some things for each role.
If only we knew one.
If only there was one in the building. But yeah, no, currently it is just the Paladin. I mean, those solo modes, again, were not one of our design strengths at the time by any means. Yeah. And so, like, I definitely think we were about just, like, making sure it existed, getting it to function. But, you know, if I was pressed for it, I'm like, is there a reason that, like, is there a good reason you couldn't try to play the spider solo with obviously a lot of adjusted rules? You need to like find the blood in some amount of time.
Yeah, I mean you could come up with it.
You could I think there's something there certainly, but like nothing like that exists. It would be all fan content or something. So yeah, nothing like that currently.
That was a fun solo mode to do though. I liked.
Oh yeah, the Paladin. Yeah, it's a fun. Again, it's I think because that exploration element is so simply interesting in that way. If like I moved into a room. It's a dead end with the thing. Like I don't know. I think it just has that nice little adventuring feel to it.
It's funny because as annoyed as I was about having to design the solo modes for Crystal Caverns, I did appreciate them because like at some point I was just testing the goblins.
Yeah.
With like I was like, now I can just flow their turn over and over and over and get it until I get their turn
completely
right.
into it.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, let me see. Anything else is? That's not a Vast related question. I can't answer that one. I'm sorry.
Brooke will stop us. She'll pull the internet out of the wall.
She will. Yeah, she'll pull the stream live. But yeah, no. I mean, there's been a lot of thoughts in the studio about what we're working on, and certainly playing Vast today and talking about it again and stuff. I think has.
We talked about it. Yeah.
We just always, it's really easy to get bitten by the creative bug about anything particular. And TMM is so ripe with area. And again, I'm a better developer than I once was. I know. I mean, I was so embarrassed.
I was so embarrassed. Those rules.
I mean, I was so embarrassed in some ways showing people it today. We're teaching people, and I'm like looking at the player boards and like where stuff's laid out and like how people are trying to read them. And
we
I'm
didn't
like,
know yet.
Oh, of course not. I mean, it was literally my first board game. So like in that way, awesome. But I could be so much better.
So I'll say, two things. So I have a question from...
Modular Vast. That was what it was called. Said. I was looking for the word.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I think the Modular Vast was a cool project, and I do like, and I think I like the way that the caves omen system works better in the Modular Vast, but I think that was actually my suggestion, so I'll just shut up. But I think it's a really neat project, and so my question for Nick is, if you were me, and you have the Frozen Fear, and you're not going to publish it, what would you do with it?
I would.
Would you laugh? Would you ridicule me, Patrick Leader, for making that prototype and playing it on my own time?
No, but I would. I believe with all of the means and tools and studio you have the capacity to simply just make it a great game. Yeah. Why not do so?
Why not do so?
Why not do so, right? I think is kind of my rough take on it. And if that means it's a frozen cave, that I think it's about harvesting whatever you've become most excited about from your latest.
Push it all back into the cave.
And then push it all back. Yeah,
push it all back in the cave, and then make it flavors of cave.
Exactly. That's how I think I would cut it, if anything, because I just think that's going to be the easiest.
And that was like the original take of that expansion was like it's the dragon versus the ice dragon.
Yeah.
So then it's like it plays the way the dragon does. It just does different things with the cards.
This is we've been talking about it a little flippantly. Frozen Fear was the theoretical third Vast game.
Well, it was actually the theoretical second.
Sorry.
Because we put Mysterious Manor and Frozen...
I wasn't there for those early concepts.
We put Mysterious Manor and Frozen Fear up against each other. Sure. And Mysterious Manor was based on the idea that... I'm repeating myself, but it was...
That's fine.
It would be a new standalone set. Mm-hmm. Versus the Frozen Fear was an expansion for Crystal Caverns, and you could swap the roles between the two. And so it was going to have 5 new roles, but the roles were much more rhyming couplets than the Mysterious Manor ones, where it was just like, oh, you now have the Barbarian Knight, and the Barbarian Knight is like the Knight, except with these couple of rule changes. I actually have a weird document called 7 Knights. That's 7 different versions of the Knight. And I was working on a solo monster that a co-op monster that they'd fight in the cave. Yeah, and so there was 7 knights, and they're all like it was the Goblin Knight and the Knight and the Vampire Knight and the Troll Knight and stuff like that. So.
That's a fun.
Yeah,
that's even a neat gimmick on it.
Yeah.
Matt and Hunter recently announced they're working on a new podcast about your games. Will you guys have any official hand in it?
I don't know. No.
I don't know. Nope, haven't heard of it.
Nope.
I was on vacation. That's fine.
Yeah, so currently, I think what's for sale right now, I think is what we're being asked, right?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. I think the mini sets and thank you. Yeah, so the way that the minis came about and the Fearsome Foes came about was the minis, because Kickstarter back then didn't allow you just to put the straight reprint on something, and people had asked me during the first Vast campaign, they said, why does this come with minis? Because it's a dungeon game.
Yeah, and it was only punch board.
Inclusion should have minis. And I was like, this is my 3rd game.
Yeah.
I don't have the expertise to do miniatures in-house, and I'm not going to bet that I will. And so I told... So when we went back to Kickstarter, I had time to accumulate that knowledge, and then I was able to come in. And frankly, that was still a little bit seat of my pants. And again, because we went back to Kickstarter, I wanted a way to draw people back from the original crowdfunding campaign.
Sure.
So I offered the 2
two
more roles, which was the Fearsome Foes. And the Fearsome Foes were the Nightmare Unicorn, which was cribbed from the 7 Knights, because that was the Nightmare Unicorn was the monster from 7 Knights.
Oh yeah.
Except it was a larger creature, and that came about. And then the Ghoul was Kyle Wolfel and I experimenting with what if there was someone that could fight everybody, and so that turned into that. And then the Ghost was that was taken from. I think a lot of those ideas were still taken from a concept drawing document that David sent me, and so he had this like. The Ghost and like a merchant, a merchant was another person that suggested, but there was like this weird character that you would bid against, which became the early Warlock.
The Warlock had that weird like rules.
And it just didn't work in that space, so we gave up on it. But then it turned into the Ghost, which and again I find the Ghost very compelling, and I like that like. When I was working on Block, I was like, is there a way we can make a role that possesses the other players and just moves them around? So
it's fun to think. Vast is a fun game because I also, in that way that I like to think about for our games, like just thematically, it's like, it has the type of world where you're like, I don't know, what else can you like put in it?
Yeah.
And, like you can put anything in a cave.
Right.
You know, in terms of monsters and whatnot, it's like, we haven't done like a big Cyclops. We haven't, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
just so much cool lore to tap into. It's like the proper amount of like tropey where it can kind of be anything.
There was a cool blue roll on BGG that it was playing Snake. You would run around and drop little crystals.
Oh yeah.
Inside the cave.
Yeah.
I thought that was neat. So.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's Vast, very exciting, very cool game. I thank Vast because I wouldn't have a job without Vast. So Vast also holds a very important part in my part.
I wouldn't have one either.
Yeah. I mean, we can all thank Vast for that.
I mean, it was right after Gen Con. It was after that second printing. It was, I didn't, like, in retrospective of Shelly's stories, it's like, we came back from Gen Con, we were sold out, I ordered more, and I ordered them for the second printing.
Yeah.
Or I ordered the second printing for the second Kickstarter. And then we got the second, I believe it was the second printing, when we got into it, we realized that we were already leveraged.
Sure.
Like, we were already sold out as soon as it arrived.
Right, yeah, once it showed up.
So I was literally packing second printing into boxes, and I called the printer, and I was like,
Can you just do more?
You just got to crank it up again and start again. I'll get you the check as soon as I can. And then that on that third printing, like, I just hired Jake, and I remember us going to we just were collecting money from distributors, and I was like, okay. And then we brought $100,000 of checks to the bank, and we were like, okay, well, we can continue for another year. Yay!
We got it for another year.
So, cool. Any other last questions there that I can't see? Otherwise,
somebody says if you were to start working on Vast again from scratch, what would you do differently? I think we kind of touched on that a lot already.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff is the short of it. But I think in the simple way, I would consider it as a fulsome product from the jump.
Yeah.
Is my simple way of putting it. I think knowing everything it's going to be from the beginning and setting that boundary would give it the guidance it needs to just put all the content into it easily.
I do one of those rulebooks where it's this is the how to play.
Yep.
Here's how to just jump in there and play it, and then here's the because there's so many permutations in this game. If you need to look up something, here's how to look it up.
Yep.
Yeah, I do that. I would focus a lot. Fearsome foes' enemies are all the hero is pretty much the paladin reskinned, with new rules and new properties. But the other characters, I've worked very hard to make. I worked very hard to make sure that they work much simpler, and so that's I think that's the in my head, I was like, well, every role has to be this complex because you want to be interested when you're playing it. But the interest is the interaction.
Well, I think we've gotten so much better about making complicated choices easy to understand. And I think that's the biggest thing that Vast struggles with a little bit. They're not. It's just hard to understand the things a little bit. It's not even that they're that. Yeah, it's not even it's that you need to do trigonometry to figure it out. It's just the understanding layer is not there as much because some of those root factions or arcs, plot lines and stuff are more complicated certainly than some of those. But it's about how they're expressed exactly.
Which is just came with experience.
100% agree.
Yeah, so I do that and I just focus on making them easier. And then to answer the manor versus cave question, I would definitely go back to. I agree with Nick. I would go back to the cave.
Yeah.
And then allow if you want to have a different cave, if you want to have a spooky cave, or if you want to have a icy cave, then it's just here's a placard that covers part of your player board, and then
you shuffle in the 10 ice tiles.
Here's the 10 ice tiles go in, and then you start the game.
Yeah, something like that.
Yep,
for sure.
We didn't sell nearly enough fast to get plushies.
You know what? I'll say it on stream here. I almost made. You know what? I'll finish it. I've been working on crafts lately. I have a littlest pet shop spider that Maddie was working on, painting one of the spiderlings in Vast.
Yeah.
And it's been on my work in progress for about, how long have I worked on Vast? 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll finish that one of these times, and that's the most you'll get is a fan art spiderling that me and my partner made.
This is cool.
Yeah, pulled it all out. We pulled out all the Vast stuff, baby.
Look at this. This was the the first edition.
Yeah, the slipcover.
The slip came with the slipcover. The slipcover weighs exactly 300 grams.
And you know that because?
I know that because it moved the package from 1,800 grams to 2,100 grams, which is important because in Europe, that means it now has to be delivered by courier.
Yep.
Which, like, almost double the price of shipping.
I can imagine, yeah.
So, but that's right. So if you have one of these, congratulations.
The most exclusive.
And then they got tore up when the ones that went to China got tore up. And so I tried to convince the factory just to print new ones so they could ship them.
Sure.
And I ended up having to harvest a few from here and send them over there because they wouldn't do it. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
The trials and tribulations at the beginning, man. It wasn't, it's not all roses.
So, all right, cool.
All right, this was awesome. This is very cool to talk about Vast.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
I'm really excited. If you are have any more questions, hit me up on Twitter or Blue Sky.
Yep.
I also am starting to infrequently, like once every few Thursdays, I've been doing Game Design Simulator, Power Wash Simulator, where I get together with a game designer and play Power Wash Simulator and talk about game design.
Fun.
So if you have any more questions, you can hit me there.
Cool. We'll see you guys in October.
In October, and then October 22nd, of course, we're doing the Root expansion Kickstarter. So.
It's going to be a big month.
Yeah.
October 15th, get ready. Live play Vast, TMM. I see
there
right
we go.
there.
Yeah, thank you. Yep.
And then yeah, we'll see
live
you
play
then.
Vast, and they're not going to let me play the skeletons during the live play.
No skeletons for Patrick.
No.
Bye, all.
Bye.